This PowerPoint is going to be a review of how to find a good research article and knowing when you do find a good research article. So we're going to start with some basics. So yes, you are in a physical therapist assistant program. The reason that I bring this up is because when it comes to finding research papers, I want you to focus on an article that includes some form of rehabilitation or physical therapy intervention. So we want to avoid articles that include surgical techniques, any unique products or tools, something that's outside the scope of practice for a physical therapist or a physical therapist assistant. So we want to look for articles that focus on exercises, modalities, any kind of rehabilitation treatment. So to briefly review our hierarchy of research designs, at the very top of our pyramid are clinical practice guidelines. So these are very thorough, very complete guidelines for physical therapy treatment. However, they're not ideal for our research projects. The next level down is our meta-analysis and our systematic reviews. These are beneficial because they take a full review of the literature on a specific topic and they summarize it for us, but in a very analytical way. There's very strict methods for how this is done. I find that these are often difficult to use for a lot of our research projects because there are too many studies included in them. So what I think is a good go-to for a lot of your research assignments for all of your classes here at Pima is to use a randomized controlled trial. So this is a prospective study that will collect data usually from at least 2 different groups and follow them over time and look at the outcomes after the intervention. So like a pre-test, post-test type of study. So these are good, and we just want to use these with physical therapy interventions or treatments, whether it's manual therapy, exercises, modalities, something along those lines. Cohort studies are beneficial to use. These are observational studies, so these are prospective. So if a cohort is exposed to a risk and end up developing a condition, these are studies that we would be able to observe that information with. Case control studies, these are retrospective, so looking back on outcomes. So somebody has this condition, what were maybe some pre-existing conditions or factors that led them to this condition. Those are typically the studies that we want to include. Now there are case reports and case series. These are not as high of a level of evidence. You can see here we have no design with these research studies. Okay, so a case report might be one patient, or a case series would be several patients that all have the same condition. And that is a lower level of evidence than our other studies that we mentioned. Our narrative reviews, expert opinions, editorials, those also fall within this category. And then we have our animal and our laboratory studies. These are not really the studies that we want to try to pull out for our research projects. Okay, they're not going to provide enough information for us to do our analysis or to determine a good PT intervention from these papers. So when looking at research articles, the things that we want to make sure we include are there has to be an introduction section, there should be a methods section, a results section, a discussion, and a conclusion. So if you're looking at a research article, it should have all 5 of these components. If you're missing a methods and a results component of your research study, it's probably not a peer-reviewed research study that collected their own data. So we will probably end up getting a review article or a clinical commentary. And these are not ideal for these research projects and these research assignments. Another tool that we'd like to provide you guys with to understand these studies is the Pedro scale. And the Pedro scale doesn't tell you specifically what level of evidence it is. Okay, it just discusses different criteria to help you rate the quality of the article. So is there specific eligibility criteria in the paper? Yes or no? Were the subjects randomly allocated to their groups? Yes or no? Was the allocation concealed? Yes or no? Were the groups similar at baseline or were they different? Okay. If you kind of see as we move down, it kind of talks about all these really important components of research that add to the quality of the research study. So if you're not sure if it's a high-level research study, I recommend going through the Pedro scale and figuring out how many yeses and how many nos you identify with these studies. So how do I find these articles? So there's several different search engines that are available for you to use. You can start with PubMed, which is this image here. I like to start with PubMed because you're only going to find higher level articles and journals on PubMed. There is the library on Blackboard from Pima. Okay, you can use EBSCO or ProQuest. You may find some limitations with using these search engines. So another option is Google Scholar. Okay, so I do like to use Google Scholar because it allows me to put in whatever information I want to, whether it's the title, whether it's the author. It allows me to categorize by year as well, so that's also very beneficial. So what am I searching for? So things you want to include in your search. You want to include your topic or your clinical question, and usually the term rehabilitation or physical therapy or treatment. Okay, all of that should help bring back the appropriate articles. Then what are you going to look at when you get your search results? You want to look at the year of the articles, you want to look at the journals, and you want to make sure you can get a full copy of the article as well, not just the abstract, because you can't do your project just on the abstract alone. So I'm going to go through an example search with you guys. So what we're going to do is search for a hamstring strain. Okay, and the criteria that I use to search is rehabilitation of a hamstring strain. Very straightforward. You can use several different search engines. I'm going to show you with Google Scholar, but you can also use PubMed or the PMI library on Blackboard. And what I want you guys to look at are the year of the journals, because there may be some restrictions by your instructor, and if you can get access to the journals. So I'm going to pull in this search that I did. So I typed in rehabilitation of a hamstring strain, and I got over 26,000 results. So you can see all of these are listed here, but the nice thing about Google Scholar is it tells you how many times the article has been cited, and if you click on this link, it will take you to all of the articles that have cited this particular article, which is sometimes very helpful. It will give you related articles, so similar articles. It will give you different versions. So right now we can access this journal via JOSPT. Okay, if we can't get it through JOSPT or other websites, it will. That's where these different versions come in. Okay, you can also save these and add them to your citation list so that you can kind of hang on to these links in these articles as needed. Okay. So another thing that I wanted to point out to you guys here is what I have in this red box is where you can access these journals. Okay, so our first two options are through JOSPT. Then there's something called ResearchGate, and ResearchGate is a website for researchers to basically use it as an open resume or CV, and they can post all the papers that they've authored, and they can also upload papers as well for you guys to access, and it's free of charge, and you can sign up for ResearchGate, and not every article is downloaded on the website. However, you can submit a request to the author to get a full copy or full version of the paper. Now that is not always possible, and you shouldn't make that as a guarantee for your assignment, but it's another way to try to access articles that we oftentimes can't get through the PMI library. The other thing I want to point out, this was one of the two papers that was listed first when we did our Google Scholar search. And one way for you to make sure that it's not a clinical commentary or a review article is when we're looking in our abstract here, we can see our methods and our measures as well as our results of these studies. And that automatically is going to tell us that it's not a expert opinion, it's not kind of just a commentary of the authors, it's actually a peer-reviewed, data-driven research paper. So different journals that you want to look for, it's often difficult to determine a quality of a journal or a higher level journal. So JOSPT and PTJ are very common articles in the field of physical therapy, and myself, Enid, Adrian, I believe even Kurt, we all have access to these journals. So if you find an article published in these journals, just shoot us an email and let us know and see if you can get access to it. You should technically have access to this on the PMI Blackboard website, but if for some reason you are unable to, just ask your instructor. Open access journals, so these are journals that are free of charge, so you don't have to be a member, you don't have to pay for the article. These can be very helpful. So OJSM is a branch of AJSM, which is a very high-end orthopedic sports journal, but OJSM is open access, so that is often a good place to look first. BMC Musculoskeletal is also a good option to look for open access journals, and International Journal of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation is also a good quality journal to use. So now that I've found my article, how do I know that it's good or it's good enough? So just to review, does it include the introduction, the methods, the results, and the discussion? Again, if it doesn't include a methods or a results section, it may not be a higher level article required for your assignment. The other thing is, what is the time frame that is required by your instructor? So some instructors will require 5 years, some may require 10 years, some may not be as much of a stickler about that. So make sure that it meets your time requirements. Does it include a PT-focused intervention or treatment? This is going to be very important because, again, remember, we're in a physical therapist assistant program, but at the same time, a lot of the goals of these research assignments is to help provide information to your classmates and to give you a better understanding of the research and the treatment available for different conditions. And finally, is it a good journal? Again, JOSPT, PTJ, AJSM, and BJSM, they're very common orthopedic sports journals that have both rehabilitation as well as physician-published manuscripts in them, so they are all good sites. So when in doubt, if you're not sure, ask your instructor. Ask your instructor if it meets the requirements of the assignment. Maybe they can help you get a full copy of the article that you're looking for, or we're also available to help you with understanding of your article if needed. So I hope that this helped answer a lot of your research questions. And again, don't forget to go to your instructors if you have any questions.